Kyle here from All Media Reviews, here to do another album of the years. I'm pretty much dedicating most of my YouTube stuff with that, unfortunately or fortunately. I should make a mention, of course I miss albums. Station to Station from David Bowie I didn't include in 76. Just a long epic. This video is going to be epic video too. This is for 1977. I missed there's an ELO album and a couple other records I missed in the past. A hard album. Anyway, so I'm just going to zip through this. This is, let's see, let me get my list out, of course. This is 1977. Not so much fusion this year, but a lot of like sort of pop prog and, you know, some bands do their sort of peak albums. 37 releases. Starcastle number 37 was Citadel, an album I don't know very well, but I bought because it was the only one I could find at the time. Not as good as the debut. Number 36, Genesis' Spot the Pigeon, the last work with Steve Hackett, Match of the Day, Inside Out. It's decent, but, you know, you can tell, just an EP is probably the reason why it's not very high. Number 36. Number 35. Number 35, okay, yeah, a couple that I don't have, which will be, you know, if I'm doing this correct in the image here. Emerson, Lake & Palmer's Works Volume 2. Works CDs I often would struggle with when I first got into ELP. Number 34, The Beach Boys' Love You. The album I think it is. You frequently see it's got the little love thing on the front of the Beach Boys symbol. Not one I'm that into. Of course, the Beach Boys, Brian Wilson, I don't even was involved at this point. Anyway, number 33, Elvis Costello, My Aim Is True. You see this record frequently. It's in the Rolling Stone issue from 67 to 87, I believe. It has the song Allison among some others. Anyway, number 32, courtesy of an aunt who gave me some of her collection. I have the Bob Marley album Exodus, which doesn't have all the Bob Marley classics, but it notably has both One Love and Jammin', and the title track. You know, I mean, it's reggae. You know, he was obviously in the Wailers, then he went solo. But yeah, this is you know, classics by some standards of Bob Marley. I'm not a huge Bob Marley fan. I like some of his stuff. I know mostly the songs that were on some of that compilation, that Legend compilation that everyone had. It's like one of the top 5 selling records of all time. But, you know, like songs like No Woman, No Cry. I mean, you know, I know a lot of those Bob Marley standards. But anyway, yeah, you can't be here. You need to not be jumping into my records. So number, let's see, 32. Number 31, David Bowie's Low. You know, one of the what is it? The first of the Berlin trilogy. It's okay. I remember getting a bunch of David Bowie albums. Some people praise this album to no end. I find it to be, yeah, because he was in Germany. It was like Bowie's doing krautrock, but it's very kind of dissonant at times. You know, I like other David Bowie. I was one of the artists that I didn't include, like some of his other records, like Aladdin Sane, which, you know, David Bowie I know more for his songs than his albums. But you know, I did review it the other day, and you know, I think it's maybe my least favorite of all the Berlin trilogy, oddly enough. And Robert Fripp wasn't on this. Brian Eno, obviously, he worked with Brian Eno in Berlin, and Brian Eno had a lot to do with the direction on this record. So anyway, that's why it ended up that low. But I mean, low, speaking of that, where it did. So number 30, I have the Rick Wakeman White Rock soundtrack, which is just Wakeman's, it's the only solo album I have from him. My friend John played this on KFAI many years ago on the air, some of it. They did it like for ski highlights and stuff. If you look at the back, you know, it's some cool synths. There's not so much church organ in this, which is why I appreciate it in some ways more. Anyway. But it's not one I love, but it's okay. Number 30, that was number 30. Number 29, another David Bowie album. This one's a little better, the second of the Berlin trilogy, Heroes, which includes the services of Robert Fripp, and of course it has the title track, which I still think is great. But you know, the rest of it is okay. I think it's an improvement over Low, but, you know, again, people love Low. They love and Lodger's the third one, which, you know, I've never heard either. I mean, my friend burned me a bunch of David Bowie albums back in the early, right when he was gonna come here to do a show in the early 2000s when I was working at the previous company. But yeah, I mean, Joe the Lion would be my other go-to on this album anyway. You know, Bowie's an album that an artist that I know his albums more by reputation than knowing. I just know his singles, but anyway, Heroes is a classic. I mean, it's a standard. You know, it's one of the best guitar solos that Robert Fripp ever wrote, and everything. But so let's see, number 28. I have the Muppets soundtrack, The Muppet Show. I don't have it on. My wife probably does have it, but who doesn't love the Muppet? I grew up. I was born in '76, so it was around the same time. It has the theme for the Muppet Show, of course. So I had to put that on there. It's just very nostalgic, and everyone loves the Muppets. So number 27. This could probably go higher because of some of the material that's being played on it. This is the Jeff Beck group with Jan Hammer, which I know when Jeff Beck passed away, this is the thing I posted on Instagram and everything like that. It's got some of the children's stuff on it. Full Moon Boogie and Earth Still Our Hearts, our heart still our only home. But some of Jeff Beck's stuff and I have some other Jan Hammer albums that I've never even listened to, but I've been looking for anything and everything related. The point that I got this, Like Children had not been issued on CD. It came out on CD in the mid 2000s, so I snatched this sucker up. But anyway, that album I've listened to tons. I mean, Jeff Beck was known for being a great live guitarist, but anyway, that's number 27. Number 26, Heart. I forgot to put Dreamboat Annie from '75, so if I do a Redux or 2.0, I'll have to, because Dreamboat Annie has songs like Crazy on You and Magic Man, but this album from Heart at 26, Little Queen includes, I believe, a Barracuda, among some others. But anyway, Heart is a band that I need to spend more time with. Their catalog of a lot of these 70s artists, but I'm not as familiar with, so that's at number 26. Number 25, or that's 26. Number 25, Michael Nesmith. This is not the Second National Band. This is just this. I don't know. It's called From a Radio Engine to a Photon Wing, which does have Michael Nesmith's probably most popular, most successful known solo song in Rio. The other kind of most notable song is The Other Room on this. It's pretty good. Casablanca Moonlight's another one. I know he's played that live. I don't like this as much as some of the first and second National Band records, but the record that followed it, I can say I maybe prefer a little bit. But it's still a decent record. It's just less country. It's more, I don't know what you call it, like not psych pop, but it's more bluesy, I guess you could say. But anyway, still good stuff. He has he still has a share of Red Rhodes, because Red Rhodes is the one guy who stayed with him. Pedal steel guitar solos on that, pedal steel guitar parts. So that's number 24, number 25. Number 24, Peter Gabriel's debut album, after he left Genesis, of course, and this is most well known for the hit Salisbury Hill, which is, it's one of his 3 or 4 most well-known songs. It's uplifting. I still love that song. I've never gotten sick of it. I'm divided about this record where, I think that Gabriel would clearly do better stuff, but some of this does remind me of Genesis, some of the stuff from Battling Up Before, some of the wordplay. Here Comes the Flood is maybe the second most well-known song on here. There's a couple others on here. Down to the Dolce Vita's great. That's really energetic. But a lot of this is experimental, but not as experimental, I guess you could say. I don't know. It's the production values are just okay for standard Peter Gabriel. I had Larry Fass. He formed a lot of the founders of his band. Tony Levin's on this, but Robert Fripp's not on this. So he eventually did play with Peter Gabriel later. But anyway, that's Car. He's the first of 3. Peter Gabriel had the 3 self-titled albums. He had different pictures. This is Car. This is the first one, of course. Oddly enough, I would say the one that followed it is more nondescript. So I don't know where that's going to finish, but I don't know if it's going to be even as high as that, depending on... I'm thinking this is one of the longest years, anyway, among the 70s stuff at least. So, let's see, that's number 24. Number 23, Queen's News of the World. Obviously known for We Will Rock You and We Are the Champions. I've gotten, tired of those songs a long time ago just because they played at every sporting event. Sheer Heart Attack is doesn't resemble the album Sheer Heart Attack. It's almost a punk song. I'm not crazy about it. I like All Dead, All Dead. Spread Your Wings is great. Who Needs You is, and It's Late. There's some decent songs on this, but I mean, this was a step down for sure from A Day at the Races and of course Night at the Opera. It's not bad. I think that they would do some slightly better work after this, but it's so well known for those two songs, and while I can sort of understand to an extent, those two songs don't. I mean, I've burned out on them, so I don't even love this album for those two songs. That's why it ended up so much lower. A lot of like kind of blues, like blues hard rock and punkish. There's definitely a punk influence on News of the World. Anyway, number 23, number 22, Journey's. I think it's their second album. I don't have their first album. Next, which I'm not sure if this is the one that has Nickel and Dime. That's the big go-to for me. Of the Lifetime, I think was on the previous one, which I didn't have on from '76. But anyway, this is the pre-Steve Perry, of course, Journey. Greg, after the guys had Neil Schon had left and Greg Rowley left Santana's band, so. But yeah, decent record, more proggy than they did later when they were more like pure AOR anyway. That's number 22. Number 21, the self-titled debut album from Happy the Man, which they did not work with Peter Gabriel on this. There was talk about they were going to, but it's mostly, instrumental prog, jazzy prog. There's a few songs with vocals on it, but Frank Wyatt, of course, and Stanley Whitaker. I saw them live at Nearfest. I think I like Crafty Hands a little more, but I've never seen a reasonable copy of Crafty Hands on vinyl. I've meant to get it, but anyway. It's got songs like Carousel and Hidden Moods, New York Dream Suite, the suite. So, yeah, I've always liked Happy the Man, but I've never been, like, obsessed with them. But I more, like, respect them. I mean, they're kind of in the Camel and Caravan, Nectar vein, although... I don't know. It's like the highs of some of those bands I probably like more than Happy. But Happy the Man is consistent. That's the thing I can say about them. The worst Happy the Man song is way better than like the worst song from Yes or something like that. But all right. So number 21, number 20, 10cc's Deceptive Bends, and I don't find I like this album as much as the previous like How Dare You and Sheet Music. I'm starting to really believe that 10cc could become a much bigger favorite of mine. I hearted Good Morning Judge, The Things That We Do for Love. That's great. Modern Blade Blue. That's really catchy. That's power pop-ish. You've Got a Cold, For the Benefit, parts 1, 2, and 3. That's the 11-minute suite. Oh, that's awesome. Very symphonic. So yeah, Happy the Man. 10cc. While this isn't I don't find it quite as good as their others, I still think the majority of this record is good enough where it belongs. It probably could go a little higher, actually, at number 20. So number 19, this might be still a thing that's pretty low. Rumors from Fleetwood Mac. This is my parents' copy or maybe my uncle's copy. Most people have heard basically the whole record. This is like The Dark Side of the Moon or another record I'm going to be talking about in a little while. Go Your Own Way, Don't Stop. This is the multi-platinum selling record, I believe. Yeah. I have the self-titled Fleetwood Mac, the second self-titled, which I didn't show from, I think it was 75. But, I wonder, The Chain. The Chain is my go-to probably on this. The next record, of course, I think was Tusk. Has some songs I almost prefer than some of the stuff on here. But it's not bad. It's just, it's stuff that you've heard, and it's like Boston's debut album in some way. We've heard it so much that, I think it's a little overrated, but I can totally get behind the influence that it had, and anyway. So that's it here. That's number 19. Number 18, Alan Parsons Project's I, Robot. This is awesome. Again, it's not quite as proggy as Edgar Allan Poe, the previous record, but it's got I wouldn't want to be like you as an absolute banger. It's like a dance song. It's R&B basically. A lot of instrumental songs like Breakdown and The Voice, and then the Suite, Genesis Channel. Yeah, I think so. But Alan Parsons Project's music can be so dreamy at points. It's like spacey, dreamy pop rock prog, and especially from this period, he was less pop. But I'm a sucker for it. Sort of, it falls in that yacht rock or soft rock vein, but it's not cheesy or, you know, whatever. I probably am underrating that a little bit. Of course, but I think of the Asimov album, Asimov story. You know, you think about News of the World, the cover art, and also that. It's like, were robots and sci-fi in the vein of falling into like the influence of songwriters and musicians at that time? Probably were. Anyway, number 17. I think this is maybe a little low, but The Geese and the Ghosts from Anthony Phillips. This album is really, really good. Some of it is sublime. The progressive stuff, the two suites, Henry Portraits from the Tudor Times and the title track suite, The Geese and the Ghosts. Oddly enough, this was written, most of the stuff was written actually by Mike Rutherford, and this has both Rutherford and Phil Collins and John Hackett. So it's a lot of Genesis that involved, and Phil actually, Collins sings on a couple tracks on here. So this is really like a Genesis album. It would be like if Anthony Phillips was involved in a lot of the music of a Genesis album, subtracting Tony Banks and Steve Hackett, you know, but this 12-string guitar is sublime on this. This is a fantastic record. It's probably rating it a little too low here. But anyway, The Geese and the Ghosts from Anthony Phillips. I remember also that last track, we played on the radio and I interrupted it. My friend Creighton was just once, about 20-some odd years ago on KFI. Sleep Fall, The Geese Fly West. I think it was that one. I think, yeah. Anyway. Anthony Phillips did write some of this, but Rutherford wrote both The Geese and the Ghosts Suite and Chinese Mushroom Cloud and the Henry Portraits from the Tudor Times. That piece is great, but it's a little slower. But that's a 12-minute piece, and the Geese and the Ghosts. That piece flows better. That's 15 minutes. I just love the acoustic guitar, especially in some of the orchestral moments on this record. There's a lot to unpack on it. Anyway, that's number 17. Number 16, Weather Report. As you can see, I don't have the compact disc. So this was in effect, the second album with Jaco Pastorius, the first sort of heavy weather. First full, like, where he played all the bass lines, I believe. And, of course, this features their most well-known track, their one pop song, their interpretation of Birdland. You know, remembering that about half of this, I think, is live. From Harley Quinn or maybe Rumba Mumba. Palladium, The Juggler, I think all that stuff is live, and Havana, rather. Is it Havana? Yeah, Teen Town is also like a jazz, I think it might be a jazz standard. It's one of their most well-known tracks. Now, this is great. I think Black Market's maybe a little more progressive, but this album might be a little more consistent. I suppose that's the best way to put it. There's not too much filler on here. And, you know, it's Jaco at his peak in a lot of ways. You know, Zawinul really blended well with him. Wayne Shorter, of course. And Wayne Shorter shows up on another record the same year, I'll just mention. So that's Heavy Weather from Weather Report, number 16. Number 15, some people think this is pretty low. I've said my piece multiple times. I'll repeat it again. Going for the one from Yes. I love Turn of the Century. I like Wonder Stories. It was a pop song that classic rock radios played. It's nice. It's dreamy. Parallels is okay. And the title track, the twangy part of it's almost like country, I think is decent. I'm not annoyed by it. Then there's the song that everyone kisses the ass of, Awaken. Get rid of the church organ, strip it down a bit, and I probably would appreciate it a lot. Because that church organ and some of the cheesy elements toward the end, in the climax, I'm not a huge fan of Awaken. I would do my own edit. I would take out the ending too. But, you know, that's why it's number 15. Again, this doesn't even have I should be covering this up. Doesn't even have a Roger Dean artwork, cover art, but anyway. They got back together, Rick Wakeman, after they did the solo works, you know, the members did the solo albums, you know, the band members got back to, including Rick Wakeman. Of course, Patrick Moraz was out. He was with the Moody Blues at this point, or, you know, he wasn't going to join. I know Ral NYC's documentary about, not that album, but I think it was Relayer, talked about what happened. Why he didn't rejoin, why he wasn't with Yes after that. It's too bad. Patrick Moraz could have done more with them, but anyway, that's number 15. Yes, number 14. Okay, yeah, I don't have that. I don't have a copy of this yet. I've been looking for it for a while. Reasonable copy. I have Billy Joel's The Stranger, which really good record, most notably for the Scenes at an Italian Restaurant Suite. That's Billy Joel doing Prague. I love that song. It reminds me kind of, in some ways, Jungle Inn from Bruce Springsteen. I mean, there are differences. There's more subtle parts to it. But in terms of the structure and the way that the dynamics and the different flavors it brings in, it has Only the Good Die Young. That's another one in Vienna. Those are my other highlights. It's a terrific record that it's got Moving Out also. So I mean, this is some people consider Billy Joel's masterpiece, and I can totally understand why. So anyway, number 14, Billy Joel's The Stranger. So number 13, yes, number 13, Kansas is Point of No Return. Of course, most well known for two songs, especially Dust in the Wind. I think I got a Grammy for that. It's okay. I've heard it a million times, like a lot of these classic rock staples. I like Point of No Return, the title track, a lot. That's been played a lot by classic rock as well. But between the two, I prefer that. But it also has songs like Paradox, Portrait He Knew, then the sort of mini epics, Lightning Hand, and where is it? Closet Chronicles. That's one of the ones I really... I mean, again, Kansas's formula of the 70s, you can kind of understand. They were doing the proggish stuff that sounds... Some of their songs you could kind of get mixed up. I mean, I have to admit, the violin with the interplay with the keyboards. But I think what they did with Point of No Return is they took some of the elements of the previous records and made it a little more song-oriented. But yeah, it was still that classic period when Kerry Livgren was in the band, and and although there's some vocals on one of the songs toward the end that I think it might be Livgren. It sounds kind of religious sounding, kind of like gospel, or anyway, because he became like whatever, a born again Kerry Livgren. I have his debut album actually. It's got pretty good people on it too. Let's see, I'll show it at some point maybe. Number 12, Supertramp's Even in the Quietest Moments, which features the closing epic. I mean, it has, people know Even in the Quietest Moments, probably most well known for the song Give a Little Bit. That was one of the 3 or 4 biggest Supertramp songs. And I still like that song. It's decent. But there's not really too many bad songs on here. Supertramp, you have the two main guys. You have Roger Hodgson and you have Rick Davies. And I kind of tend to lean more to Hodgson, but Davies' songs sometimes there's more to uncover. A song like Downstream is great, and then From Now On. The Fool's Overture, that's the epic, very orchestral. That some people think there's a lot of emotion in that song. A lot of this is piano-driven, but it's great stuff. And the other real huge banger on this album is Babaji. That's a Supertramp song more people need to hear. I think I've heard it on WDGY, one of the oldies channels here, but that should have been as big as like Give a Little Bit, or it's catchy, it's energetic, it's uplifting. Yeah, I mean, Give a Little Bit, I guess, is a little more concrete, a little more compact, but Babaji is awesome. Love that track. That's a banger. So that's number 13. Let's see here, number 12, number 11. Okay, so the Genesis live album, Seconds Out. It's great. I mean, I tend to lean toward Genesis live a little more because it's Gabriel, but it does have Supper's Ready. You had Bill Bruford, of course, on it. The prog fans know this thing. Musical Box, Carpet Crawlers, and then some of the stuff from, of course, the 2 records at this point that they had released with Phil on lead vocals, Trick of the Tail and Wind and Weather. And you have, Robbery, Assault and Battery, Afterglow, one other I thought, but Dance on a Volcano and Los Endos. Has Cinema Show, of course, Squonk. I mean, the track list, the set list is superior to Genesis Live, mostly because it's a double album. And the versions are a little different, but, I still really enjoy this thing. So anyway, it's sort of the definitive Genesis prog album. I mean, 3 Sides Live I've never even heard, actually. I know people love that record, but, I need to check that one out still. So that's number 11. Number 10, Songs from the Wood from Jethro Tull. I kind of liken this to being like a really good album without... It's kind of... it's slightly nondescript. The biggest highlights for me on this album are... Velvet Green. The kind of chorus, the repeated, motif on that song. But the title track, Jack in the Green... Ring Out, Solstice Bells, that's kind of religious. Hunting Girl. I think of this album of someone going through the woods on an adventure, like Robin Hood or something. The odd thing about this is you always associate this with acoustic guitar. And while I would say that Anthony Phillips' album, The Geese and the Ghost, has more acoustic guitar, there's still a lot of electric guitar on here. There's a lot of keyboards, and there's a lot of flute, of course. The flute kind of goes with that. And this is how they kind of got lumped in with yacht rock, because they were using the flute. But it's a consistent record song to song, and it's better than some of their records. I'm not a fan of a few of the records like War Child and a couple of the records that came after this. But at the same time, I mean, it's progressive in some ways. It's hard rock in some ways. I think it's not quite as good as Minstrel in the Gallery and the two real proggy albums in the three proggy albums in the early 70s. But most people like this album. No one considers it like their favorite Jethro Tull, but most people enjoy this, and I can understand why. I mean, that's why it's number 10. So number 10. Number 9, don't have it, but ELO's Out of the Blue, of course, is a double album. It's ELO's peak. It's their masterpiece in a lot of ways. Of course, it features, besides Jeff Lynne, Roy Wood, who would be on another record I'm about to talk about. But, it has the suite, which includes Mr. Blue Sky. I think I have it pulled up here. Yeah. The Concerto for a Rainy Day, which is like a grand total of like 36 minutes, 37 minutes, something like that. A lot of that, besides Mr. Blue Sky, has been played on the radio, but it's a little bit long, I think. But it still is very well composed. It's highly orchestral, highly layered. I'm sure they spent $1 million trying to make a lot of that with like a large string section. The first half, it's kind of like, my take is this album is sort of their sort of influence of doing like an Abbey Road kind of thing, but doing it as a double album. But Turn to Stone, It's Over, Sweet Talkin' Woman, those 3 songs have been played on the radio a lot. So I mean, ELO's Out of the Blue is very big, and in some ways it's more is more. In some ways the more is a little more than that, because it's 70 minutes long. But I can't say I've listened to it 80 times. I just think I've heard a lot of these songs on the radio, so I know them for the radio songs. But it's a bit of a process to listen to the whole thing at once. But it just has a lot to like. And again, I think it's their peak. I think it's the best thing that the ELO did, and most people feel that way, I believe. So that's number 9. Number 8, another band probably at their peak. Styx's Grand Illusion, which features a number of radio songs. Of course, most well known for "Come Sail Away." It's a great song. It's been played a million times. Of course, it's been played in a lot of pop culture and stuff, but it still holds up. It's kind of prog doing pop, or AOR prog pop. But the title track, Fooling Yourself, that's been played on the radio a lot, both of them. Castle Walls, Man in the Wilderness, and Miss America, and Superstars. I mean, all of those are just great tracks, great progressive pop rock songs. The production is a step up from, Crystal Ball and the other albums that they did. So, yeah, this is a terrific record. I think this is the kind of the peak of AOR prog in some ways, but AOR prog that when it worked. You put this alongside Boston's first album, and I don't know, I probably would still go with this over it, but it's of that kind of thing where it's like every track is great, production's pristine, there's so many things to like about it, between the vocals, the keyboards, the different riffs, the kind of the dynamics and everything. So anyway, number 8. Number 7 is another album I do not have, which again I've been looking for. It's Steely Dan's Asia, which I was reading about that today. They had like some 40 musicians on it. It's most well known, of course, from Peg and Deacon Blues, and then the last song on it, Rosie, something like that. It's called like Rosie. That song has been on the radio, but it's a radio staple as well. But I mean, the title track is great. Title track musicianship is off the chart. The drum work. The weird thing about this album is it's almost like because every track has like a different set of musicians besides Donald Fagen and Walter Becker. And even Walter Becker is kind of taking a backseat in some of it. You have Larry Carlton, but you have other people. Michael McDonald's on, of course, Peg. You can barely hear him doing that, but he's on one other track toward the end, which he's more distinct. Josie's the song I was trying to think of. That's the other sort of pop banger. I believe it's I Got the News, yeah. But Black Cow's nice. I mean, the production is through the roof. It's like absolute perfection from a production standpoint. And, you know, it's just kind of perfection. Just like ELO, it seemed like they were building their whole career, the previous, whatever, 7, 8 years, and 6 or 7 albums to make this album. And it shows. I mean, it's pretty much properly rated, and so I pretty much, really, it's my favorite Steely Dan album if I'm choosing one. But so, all right, number 6, Annie Haslam's debut album with Roy Wood of ELO, who she was dating. And at one point, he might have been married. He does actually a lot of the songwriting on this, and he does some vocals even. Annie in Wonderland, which this is different from Renaissance because it's more jazzy at points. Annie gets to experiment. There's more chanting, but there's a huge amount of charm to it. I mean, I have a bias because she is my favorite singer. But this came out, you know, right after Scheherazade, but she wanted to do some different kind of music. Of course, we don't have the track list on here. But is it a concept album about Alice in Wonderland? Sort of, but not really. I mean, look at some of the... we get a lot of... You know, if you like Annie Haslam, you know, she was easy on the eyes, of course, especially back then. But there were a couple of... Nature Boy is super catchy. That was a banger. That's probably my favorite track on here. You know, If I Loved You, Going Home, you know... It's kind of a sweet, If I Were Made of Music, you know, there's some imagination and fantasy elements to it, but it's not like on-the-nose references to Lewis Carroll and Alice in Wonderland. He shouldn't talk about the Mad Hatter or, you know, Humpty Dumpty or whatever like that. The artwork kind of suggests that it might, you know, because with this fantasy artwork, but yeah, I mean, there's some Middle Eastern elements, again, the jazzy elements, some of it's very whimsical. It's not as orchestral as Renaissance stuff, but... You know, there's not that much guitar, though, oddly enough, too. But anyway, I still love it. It's her best solo album. And, you know, I just love her. So number 5, so I have my bias, of course. Number 5, we see Annie Haslam again. And someone's saying if you like Roy Wood, you definitely need to hear that record. But Novella, this is the crappy American cover, I believe. I wish I had the original, the one. But this is a fantastic record. I love every song on it. Can You Hear Me? 13 minutes. Touching Once. So Hard to Keep. And Midas Man. Those are the sort of most well-known songs that end up on those compilations. But Captive Heart and Sisters are a little slower, especially Captive Heart, but they're still really good. You know, it's a continuation. It's not quite as big, of course, as Scheherazade or even like Ashes Are Burning, but still consistent in the run, and it definitely differs from her solo album. So if you bought both of them in 77, you wouldn't be thinking, I'm just getting 2 of the same album, but no. So anyway, that's Novella, number 5. Number 4, the one in the first and probably last appearance of this band, the Grateful Dead, Terrapin Station, the Grateful Dead doing Prague, the Terrapin Suite, pretty much. My copy's a promo, but yeah, I mean, I can't say a lot more about that. It's a fantastic piece. The side 1 is good. I'm Samson, Delilah, Passenger. I like those pieces, but you pretty much get your money's worth with that. You know, it's very orchestral, very cinematic. It doesn't sound anything like the sort of jam band, bluesy kind of jug band cliches that you might get with Grateful Dead. And I like some Grateful Dead. American Beauty, some people consider a classic. You know, Sugar Magnolia, you know, Uncle John's Band. I know some of those songs, but this is to me where Grateful Dead did something different, and they did they were influenced by Yes or Genesis or whatever, and doing the prog. And the Terrapin Suite is, you know, although I like Dark Star, that what is it, the first or second record too? They did some sort of psychedelic progressive stuff, but as a whole, this was like 6 or 7 albums later, and of course it's a studio album. Most people think of them as live, but Terrapin is, you know, where it's at. If you like prog and you don't like the Dead, this is where you need to check out before you completely end your interest. If you know, and if you like the Dead and you haven't heard that, you like prog, obviously it's one to hear too. So number 3, the second solo album from Al Di Meola. See, I didn't have a lot of fusion in '77. I just had Weather Report basically, but This is Elegant Gypsy. This is, I don't know, push comes to shove, probably my favorite Al Di Meola solo album. And it features my favorite track, Race with the Devil on the Spanish Highway. That's the track that Liquid Tension Experiment riffed a lot on Acid Rain. It's absolutely mind-blowingly fast without losing you. That interval pattern is just and it sounds very soundtrack, very like my friend John used to talk about, reminded of James Bond movies. A lot of great keyboards. I believe that Jan Hammer's on here. Flight Over Rio is another track on here that's favorite. Midnight Tango. But yeah, Elegant Gypsy, fantastic jazz fusion record. After Return to Forever, basically, he left Return to Forever. Return to Forever was like a chick solo band again, basically, and it was kind of transitioning to basically not really existing. Number 2, Rush, of course, Farewell to Kings. You know, one of my first favorite Rush albums. I always loved the title track when I got the Chronicles compilation. Cygnus X1, you know, the first part is epic. It's Geddy does his highest wailing, even though it's probably out of his vocal range in some ways. But you know, it's obviously favorite. It's heavy at times, very dynamic, very cinematic, very kind of, you know, fantasy-like, of course, and a lot of like ebbs and flows on that. Of course, it has one of their biggest pop songs, Close to the Heart. I still don't mind. Burn out a little bit on it, but it's not bad. Then you have Madrigal and Cinderella Man and Xanadu. So, and number 1. You have Pink Floyd's Animals, of course. My favorite Pink Floyd album, one of the 20, 30 best albums of the 70s. The 3 big epics are the biggest thing you get for. Even though the lyrics are dark, the flow on this record, Richard Wright especially, the piano work, guitars, David Gilmour's guitar work, channeling pigs and dogs and stuff like that. Love it all. So, anyway, that's it for 1977. Thank you for watching. Please comment, like, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.